compact SUV market has always intrigued me because, well, it delivers the best of all worlds. Unlike a crossover that can feel just too much like a sedan, the compact SUV market, well, blends a lot of options. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, behind me is one such offering, the all-new 2021 Buick Envision. And what it has this year is a little bit wider, a little bit lower, but still sedan-esque and SUV qualities. Full disclaimer, you've heard me mention it before, but I am quite fond of big SUVs, and in just a couple of weeks you'll see such an infatuation with an offering coming my way that will be quite substantial. But personally, well, I've begun to rethink that overall mindset and begun to scale down my approach of the daily driver for the family, actually buying something in this segment, specifically a Mazda CX-5 a couple years back. So when this vehicle drove up, well, I didn't really run the other way and was actually intrigued to see what awaited me on the inside, and I really did like the silhouette at first glance. But the big change for 2021 again is that it's wider and lower, and where you feel that is right behind the wheel. Really gives that sporty sedan-like feel, but when you look in the rear view, what you see is that cargo to boot. So we talk about the compact segment, you're talking about, well, scaling things back, that comparative to, well, my mid-size or even full-size segment. Just how much smaller is this vehicle compared to those? Now, typically the mid-size starts around about 185 inches, but really 190, 195 is a decent size mid-size SUV. Obviously, full size is going to be over 205, 210 inches, really big offerings. But the Envision, well, not that much smaller than where I'd like to begin in the mid-size segment. This vehicle around about 182 inches, just 3 to 6 inches smaller than what I typically prefer. Also, wheelbase fairly stretched at about 109 inches. Other numbers to think about, again, it is a little bit wider for this year, around about 74 inches, and height around about 64 inches. That compared to a sedan, which is easily going to be about a foot lower than what we see here, obviously meaning for a back-bending affair for, well, someone my height. Another big story this week was really the comments from onlookers after they gave it a nice quick once around. They really liked what they saw, but a little bit of shock and awe when they came around to the grille and saw the Buick emblem there front and center. Now, it wasn't that they were confused thinking this was a BMW or Lexus. They just didn't expect it to be a Buick, and that's mainly because of its youthful, approachable design on the outside. Most of them thinking, well, Buick typically for the more mature individual in our family that typically purchased behind the wheel. But with this exterior, you could say it's for the next generation. Now, compared to that CX-5 like I own, what I like on that vehicle and what I see here are the nice smooth lines, nice youthful exterior, nice fluid architecture versus some of that chiseling up we see a lot in the compact market. Also like grille warfare, both again on that CX-5 and what we see here. First, huge offering when it comes to the grille, adorned in that typical Buick chrome that we see nice around the exterior with little accents here and there. Nice menacing headlights, a little bit of flare out here and there, and just a nice aggressive front end that again, well, delivers to the overall design. Now, the more I walk around this vehicle, the more I realize why I like it, and that's because I see design cues from the past that I prefer, and even from the present, most notably being that CX-5 sitting right over there. Now, I'm not saying again that this is a mirror image of it, but really I like the fact that the design cues that I like over there, I can find here. Now, first off, where I see it is the fact that this vehicle keeps everything nice and tight. Should they have chiseled it up or made it too voluptuous, makes it look like a sneaker or just an oddball. But where they keep it tight is right around the haunches, almost like it comes over and shaved right off. And well, if I look over there, see the same thing. As you sweep down, just a little bit of dip here and there, giving a little bit of hint of accent, fluid architecture, but again, not going too far. Now, to be expected on a Buick, premium accents, that chrome we've seen for decades, you're going to see it across here. Over there at the CX-5, just a hint of it here and there. As you sweep down, again, nice tight body lines. A signature move almost across this segment is this line right through here. Look over there, see almost the same thing. The elongation of the roof line sweeping back in. Give a little bit of voluptuous, you could say, here at the back end, but again, not overkill. As you sweep down, almost standard styling cues with the rear hatch. A little bit of angling up right through here. A little bit of mirroring there on the CX-5 as well. Body color all the way around this vehicle. One thing I don't like is too much rubber cladding. Again, it tends to make this vehicle look like a shoe or some oddball but really nice, sleek designs. Just a little bit of protrusion out here with the rear taillights. Now, as I sweep around this vehicle, I had a little bit of nostalgic feeling, a throwback Thursday. I need you to put your memory bank on and go back all the way to the early days of the Lexus RX 300. This kind of embodies that just a little bit. Nothing wrong with comparing the Envision to that Lexus. What I also like, again, is nice tightness back here. Modest rear offering here to the rear taillights. Huge broad glass and pretty much body color all the way around. Even nice chromed out rear tailpipes. Also is the cargo. That's the advantage of a nice compact SUV versus a sedan, is what lies beneath here. Now, to gain access, you got a few options. First off, here on the key fob, just a simple press. Also the electronic release here, or at night you will see a little Buick emblem there on the ground. That reminds you, well, you can go hands-free. Just simply take your leg, swing it around, and it will eventually open. Looking at the cargo area, first off, you're going to notice around about 25 cubic feet as it sits. If you want to gain more, well, simply lay the second row flat. Going to give you more than double, around about 52 cubic feet. Also, real ease of operation, basically kind of a 70-30 split here. Handles on either outer shoulder. Just simply pull it real easy and it tumbles flat. One thing I also like is a nice flat seamless floor, because anytime you have, well, openings, that's just one place for everything to fall into and pretty much get lost. Now, I mentioned earlier about how this vehicle is a little bit lower and wider, giving that sporty feel like a sedan, but the only way that's really going to work well is if you have something nice and equipped here under the hood. And well, Buick delivers specifically with a 2.0 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged option. Now, it's going to deliver around about 228 horses and 258 foot-pounds of torque, coupled to a nice 9-speed automatic transmission. And if you do want to sport things up, good to note there are some paddle shifters there on the steering wheel. Now, one thing I've always touted is really General Motors' MyLink system, how they're nice and colorful and easy to use, and as you can tell, they certainly have grown over the last several years. What also has changed is how they are positioned here on the dash. Oftentimes they were typically front and center, up and down, but as you can tell here on the Envision, almost like an airplane cockpit, angled just to the driver just right and tilted back just a hair. Even with the overall compact size, one thing I did notice is the touchscreen system is modestly an arm stretch away, which meant I ended up using the controls found on the steering wheel. Now, interestingly, volume and tune select typically found on the face, but instead you'll find the volume select actually tucked here behind on this side, and the tune select over on this side, and of course those paddle shifters I mentioned earlier. Now, for climate control, you can do one of two things: use the LCD screen up above, or you have traditional controls down below. First off, heated front seats controls on either side. Toggle's going to be the name of the game when it comes to controlling, both for the vent speed and the temperature select for the dual zones up front, but everything nice and simple to use. But one thing you will notice that if you go to the touchscreen system, you do have the split screen like we see here, or you can hit the climate control, and that does give you a nice more heads up vision versus looking way down here. And I'm always a big fan of keeping your eyes on the road, so this is a better interface. Now, one thing we've seen over the last couple of years really is the advancement in the gauge cluster. Now, not necessarily getting rid of the analog tach and speedometer like we see here, but really the LCD display that is wedged in between. And what we see here on the Envision is where manufacturers are headed, really giving a huge offering there in the LCD, giving you tons of information at a glance. Of course, right down to the digital speed, even the speed limit of where you're at and what mode you're in when it comes to driving, either two-wheel drive or on this vehicle, the all-wheel drive option. Underneath the climate, you will find this little niche here. It does have a nice hideaway look to it with this covering. Once retracted back, there is some offering when it comes to connectivity, USB, USB-C, as well as traditional car outlet. Non-traditional gear selection in the form of these pull or push tabs right through here: park, reverse, neutral, drive, and the manual-like mode. Again, that works with the paddle shifters there on the steering wheel. Dual cup holders up front. You also have those outer niches on the front doors, really hold some extra items when you need it. Some other things to think about is the mode select found right here. When you simply press that, that will display there on the gauge cluster, giving you options from sport, off-road, Tour, and all-wheel drive mode. Between the front occupants, you will find this console has a split design when it comes to the lid. Almost acts like a division for the passenger's elbow and the drivers to know where they place them, which you also find is kind of a difference when it comes to operation. Instead of a lid that swings out of the way, you have this split overall look that creates kind of this barrier both for the passenger and driver to have to kind of reach over. Now, once you look inside, it is a deep cavernous area, but no interior lighting, which means it's just going to be kind of dark and cavernous at night. When it comes to legroom numbers, you're going to have 40 inches in the front, barely a drop for backseat drivers to around about 39 inches. Typical bench styling with the bottom cushion. A little bit of individualized attention for outer occupants. Decent room across, though, for 3 adults when needed. Also, you'll have this drop down for elbow support. Does have nice overall elevation and dual cup holders. As for back seat climate, you will find it in the form of these vents, nice in position, really getting airflow back as well, and connectivity in the form of a USB and USB-C down there. With the sporty and youthful exterior, the aggressive front end, turbocharged under the hood, cargo to boot, and premium here on the inside, well, it's easy to remember why the more mature individuals typically sit behind the wheel. Now the next young generation is taking notice, and that pretty much means Buick has a vision of where they're headed. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.